Welcome to my channel Deep Sleep Mission-DSM. As we begin, I would be delighted if you could share your location in the comments below. It's truly inspiring to witness how far this content travels and to connect with viewers from across the world. The smell hit me first. Not the usual Texas Roadhouse aroma of sizzling steaks and fresh-baked rolls that makes your mouth water from the parking lot. This was different. Sweet, almost. Like meat left too long in marinade, like something trying too hard to smell appetizing. I should have turned around right then, should have gotten back in my Honda Civic and driven the extra 40 miles to Amarillo. But I'd been on I-40 for 6 hours straight, my stomach was eating itself, and that familiar red neon sign promised comfort food and normalcy. Funny how wrong a person can be. If you're listening to this, if you're one of those people who found my story online and wondered if it was real, I need you to know something. The Texas Roadhouse on exit 2037, the one that doesn't show up on Google Maps anymore, the one corporate swears never existed, stay away. Just stay away. And before you ask in the comments, yes, this really happened. No, I don't care if you believe me, but maybe if you share this with enough people, someone else won't make the same mistake I did. The story begins now. The GPS kept recalculating as I took the exit. That should have been my second warning. But after 6 hours of nothing but tumbleweeds and truck stops, I was running on autopilot. The sun was setting behind me, painting everything orange and red, making the world look like it was on fire. The Texas Roadhouse sat alone at the end of a service road. No other businesses around it, no gas station, no motel, just empty lots full of desert scrub and broken concrete. The parking lot was maybe a quarter full, mostly pickup trucks and a couple of semis. Normal enough for a Tuesday night in the middle of nowhere. But now, looking back, I remember things I didn't notice at the time. The way the parking lot lights buzzed with an electric hum that was just slightly off frequency. How the asphalt beneath my feet felt soft, almost spongy, like it was still warm from being laid even though the temperature was dropping fast. The complete absence of insects around those lights, no moths, no beetles, nothing drawn to the artificial glow. I parked between a dusty F-150 and a Camry with Arizona plates. Through the windows, I could see people eating, servers carrying trays. Everything looked normal. Everything looked right, except for the silence. Desert nights aren't quiet. There should have been coyotes calling in the distance, the rustle of small creatures in the brush, the drone of traffic from the interstate. But here, the only sound was that electrical hum from the parking lot lights and the muffled noise from inside the restaurant. Like the building existed in its own pocket of reality, separate from the world around it. The hostess smiled when I walked in. College-aged, blonde ponytail, the standard Texas Roadhouse uniform with the tied-up shirt and jeans. Her name tag said, "Madison? Just one tonight?" she asked, and her teeth were so white they almost glowed in the dim lighting. "Yeah, just me. Perfect. Right this way." She grabbed a menu and led me past the bar area. A couple of guys in trucker caps were watching a Cowboys game on the TV, nursing beers. Normal. A family of 4 was celebrating what looked like a kid's birthday. Normal. The peanut shells crunched under my feet. Normal. But that smell, that sweet, wrong smell, it got stronger as we went deeper into the restaurant. I should mention here that I've got a sensitive nose. Always have. Sarah used to joke that I could smell rain coming from 20 miles away. It's why I noticed the smell in the first place, why it bothered me so much. And there was something underneath that sweetness, something metallic and organic and wrong that made my stomach clench even as my mouth watered. Madison sat me at a booth near the back. "Your server will be right with you. Can I start you off with some fresh rolls and honey cinnamon butter?" "Sure, that sounds." She was already gone, moving with that practiced server efficiency. I settled into the booth, the fake leather squeaking under me. The menu was sticky, probably from syrup or sauce. I flipped through it, everything exactly where it should be. Ribeye, sirloin, New York strip, Dallas filet, but the prices were wrong. Not expensive wrong, cheap wrong. The kind of prices you'd see at a diner, not a steakhouse. 8-ounce sirloin for $7.99, $1.90, ribeye for $12.99. The kind of prices that should have made me suspicious, but I was tired and hungry and just grateful for a good deal. "Hey there, I'm Trevor. I'll be taking care of you tonight." The server was maybe 19, 20 tops. Enthusiastic in that way servers are when they're still new to the job. His hair was slicked back, and he had that same, too, white smile as Madison. But now I noticed other things, too. The way his uniform was perfectly pressed, like it had just come from the cleaners. How his hands were completely smooth, no cuts or burns from handling hot plates. No calluses, no imperfections. "What can I get you to drink?" "Just a Coke." "Absolutely. And have you decided on your meal, or do you need a few more minutes?" I hadn't even looked at the menu properly yet, but I knew what I wanted. Same thing I always got. I'll take the 8-ounce sirloin medium with a loaded baked potato and green beans. Excellent choice, Trevor scribbled on his pad without looking at it, his eyes never leaving mine. That'll be right out for you. He disappeared, and I pulled out my phone. No signal, not unusual out here in the desert, but annoying. I'd wanted to text Sarah, let her know I'd stopped for dinner. She worried when I did these long drives alone. The rolls arrived almost immediately, steam still rising from them. Madison set them down with that same bright smile. Enjoy. I tore one open, spread the honey butter, took a bite, and nearly gagged. It tasted like they'd used salt instead of sugar in the dough, but not just salt. Something metallic, coppery, like biting into a penny that had been left in the sun. I discreetly spit it into my napkin and pushed the basket away. Trevor appeared with my Coke. How are those rolls? Amazing, right? Yeah, great. Your steak will be out in just a few minutes. I sipped the Coke to get the taste out of my mouth. It was flat, syrupy, but better than nothing. Around me, the other diners were eating normally. The family was laughing at something the dad said. The truckers were arguing about a referee call. Nobody else seemed to notice anything wrong. Maybe I was just tired. 6 hours on the road could mess with your senses. But then I started paying closer attention to the sounds. The family's laughter, it was rhythmic, too rhythmic. Ha ha ha, pause, ha ha ha, pause. The trucker's argument, I couldn't make out the words, but the cadence was all wrong. Like actors reading lines they didn't understand. And underneath it all, barely audible, was something that sounded almost like machinery. A low humming like the electrical system was working overtime. The steak arrived faster than any steak should, maybe 10 minutes, tops. Trevor set it down with a flourish, that smile never wavering. 8-ounce sirloin, medium, loaded potato, green beans. Can I get you anything else? It looked perfect. Char marks in all the right places. The potato was split open and overflowing with cheese, bacon, sour cream. The green beans glistened with butter. No, this looks good, thanks. You let me know if you need anything at all. I cut into the steak, pink in the middle, just how I liked it. The knife went through like butter, too easily actually, like the meat had no structure to it. But I was hungry, so I took a bite. It was the best steak I'd ever tasted. No, that's not right. It was perfect, too perfect, too perfect. Like someone had taken the idea of a steak, the platonic ideal of beef, and somehow made it real. Every chew released flavors that shouldn't exist. Sweet and savory and something else, something that made my mouth water and my stomach clench at the same time. The texture was wrong too. It should have been fibrous, chewy in places, but this dissolved on my tongue like it was already digested, like my mouth was just a formality before it reached my bloodstream. I took another bite, then another. I couldn't stop. Even as my brain was screaming that something was wrong, deeply, fundamentally wrong, I kept eating. The meat seemed to melt on my tongue, coating my mouth with that incredible, terrible flavor. With each bite, I felt different, warmer, more relaxed. Like the food was releasing endorphins directly into my system. My vision got sharper, colors more vivid. The restaurant around me seemed to pulse gently, like a heartbeat. Halfway through, I made myself stop, put the fork down, pushed the plate away slightly. That's when I noticed the couple in the booth across from me. They were both eating steaks, too, but they weren't chewing. Not really. They were cutting precise, identical pieces, putting them in their mouths and swallowing. Their movements were synchronized. Cut, lift, insert, swallow, cut, lift, insert, swallow. I watched them for maybe 30 seconds before the woman's head turned toward me. Not her body, just her head, like an owl. It's good, isn't it? She said. Her voice was flat, pleasant, but empty. The meat here is always so fresh. Yeah, I managed. It's great. You should finish it, the man said, his head turning now too. It's rude to waste food, especially when it's so fresh. They both smiled, those same two, white smiles. Then their heads swiveled back and they resumed eating. Cut, lift, insert, swallow. I stood up abruptly, my napkin falling to the floor. Just need to use the restroom. Neither of them responded. Nobody in the restaurant even looked at me. The family was still laughing, but now that I was paying attention, they were laughing in a pattern. Ha 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 ha. Pause. Ha 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 ha. Pause. Like a laugh track on a loop. The truckers at the bar were still watching the game, but the TV was off. Black screen. They were staring at nothing, occasionally raising their beers to their lips in unison, and every single person in the restaurant was eating steak. The family's kids had little plates of cut-up beef. The truckers had massive ribeyes. Even the staff members I glimpsed walking by were chewing something, their jaws working in that same mechanical rhythm. I walked quickly toward the restrooms, trying not to run. The hallway to the bathrooms was darker than it should be. The lights were on, but they seemed tired, like they were struggling to push back the darkness. The men's room door was heavy, heavier than any bathroom door had a right to be. I pushed inside, and it was normal. Just a regular restaurant bathroom. Urinals, stalls, sinks. The automatic paper towel dispenser whirred to life as I entered. I went to the sink, turned on the water, splashed my face. The water was warm, too warm, almost body temperature. And when I looked down at the sink, the water swirling down the drain was slightly pink, like it had been mixed with something, like there was iron in the pipes. When I looked up into the mirror, Trevor was standing behind me. I spun around, my heart hammering. He was just inside the door, still smiling. "Is everything okay with your meal, sir?" Yeah, fine. Just needed a minute. You should get back to it. It's getting cold, and we put so much effort into making it just right for you. I'll be right there." He didn't move. Just stood there, blocking the door, smiling, and in the harsh bathroom lighting I could see his face more clearly. The skin was too smooth, too uniform, like plastic, like a mask. I said, "I'll be right there." "Of course." He stepped aside. "Take your time, but not too much time. The meat doesn't stay fresh forever." I pushed past him and out of the bathroom. The hallway seemed longer than before, the lights dimmer, and that smell, that sweet, wrong smell, was overwhelming now. When I got back to my table, my plate had been refilled. A full steak, perfectly cooked, char marks in all the right places. But it was the same steak. I could tell by the pattern of the grill marks, the exact placement of the potato, like they just reset it. Madison was standing beside my booth. "Trevor mentioned you might still be hungry." "This one's on the house." "I didn't. It's our pleasure, really. We want to make sure you're satisfied." Her smile flickered again, that same glitch, and for just a moment I saw something else underneath, something hungry. I sat back down. What else could I do? Madison stayed there, watching. The couple across from me was still eating in perfect synchronization. The family's laughter continued its rhythmic loop. "I'm actually full," I said. "Could I just get the check?" Madison's smile flickered, just for a second, like a glitch in a video. "But you haven't finished your meal." "Either meal. I'm not that hungry anymore. That's impossible." Her voice was still pleasant, but there was something underneath it now. Our meat always makes people hungry. Always. The way she said meat, she drew out the word, made it sound obscene, made it sound like a secret. I stood up again, pulling my wallet out. "Look, here's $40. That should cover it with a good tip. I really need to go." Her hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. Her grip was cold, too cold, like she'd been holding ice, or like there was no warmth in her at all. "You can't leave until you've finished. It's policy. Let go of me. Not until you sit down and eat." The entire restaurant had gone quiet. The family wasn't laughing anymore. The truckers had turned from the black TV screen. Everyone was looking at me, all of them with those same white smiles. "Sit down," they said in unison. "Eat your meat." Their voices created a harmony that shouldn't have been possible, like a choir that had practiced this exact moment, like they'd done this before. I yanked my arm free and ran. Not toward the front door, they were all between me and the exit. I ran toward the kitchen, through the swinging doors that said, "Employees only." The kitchen was wrong. Everything about it was wrong. There were no grills, no fryers, no cooktops, just rows and rows of steel tables, and on each table, even now, months later, I can't describe what I saw. My brain won't let me. It keeps trying to make it make sense, to turn it into something normal. But I remember the smell. Stronger than ever, sweet and metallic and wrong. And I remember the sound, a wet, rhythmic chopping, like someone tenderizing meat with mechanical precision. And I remember the conveyor belt. Yes, a conveyor belt running from one end of the kitchen to the other. Things moved along it, wrapped things, packaged things, all the same size, all the same shape. And I remember the freezer door at the back, wide open, cold fog spilling out. And I remember what was hanging in there. They weren't cows. They were wearing clothes, familiar clothes, a John Deere cap, a floral dress, a trucker's flannel shirt, all the clothes of the people who had come before me. All the people who had taken exit 2037, who had smelled that sweet smell, who had tasted that perfect meat. "You shouldn't be back here." I turned. Trevor was standing in the doorway, but he wasn't smiling anymore. His face was blank, like a mannequin. Like whatever had been animating it had been switched off. "That's not beef," I whispered. "No, but it's fresh, always fresh. We make sure of that. What are you people? We're just trying to serve a good meal. That's all we've ever wanted, to feed people, to keep them satisfied." Behind him, I could see the others filing into the kitchen. Madison, the couple from across from me, the family, the truckers, all of them with those blank mannequin faces now, all of them moving with that same synchronized precision. "You ate the meat," Trevor continued. "You're part of the family now. You'll understand soon. You'll help us serve others. Keep them satisfied." I grabbed a knife from the nearest table, a big butcher's knife, still wet with something I didn't want to identify. "Stay back." They laughed. All of them, in perfect synchronization. "Ha ha ha, pause. Ha ha ha, pause." "That won't help you," Madison said. "We're not cuttable, not anymore." I backed toward the freezer, the knife shaking in my hand. The cold hit me like a wall, but I kept backing up into that fog, past the hanging. The bodies were fresh, too fresh. Some of them were still, moving, slight twitches. Like they weren't quite done yet. There was a door, a back door, an emergency exit. I hit the bar and stumbled out into the desert night. The desert was black, no moon, no stars, just the faint glow of the restaurant behind me. I ran blindly, stumbling over rocks and scrub brush, the knife still clutched in my hand. I could hear them behind me, not running, walking, in perfect synchronization, their footsteps like a drumbeat in the darkness. "Come back!" they called. "You're part of the family now." The meat is getting cold. We have so many more to serve. But their voices were getting fainter. Whatever they were, they couldn't move fast. Or maybe they just didn't need to. Maybe they knew something I didn't. I kept running. I had to get to my car. But the parking lot seemed impossibly far away. Like the desert was stretching, growing longer with each step. The ground under my feet was wrong too. Soft in some places, hard in others. Like I was running over buried things that shifted slightly as I passed. Then I saw lights. Headlights. A truck pulling into the parking lot. A real truck with a real person. I changed direction, running toward it, waving my arms. "Help, please. Something's wrong with this place." The truck stopped. The door opened. A man stepped out, an older guy in a John Deere cap and flannel shirt. Normal. Real. "You okay, son? We have to go. Now! They're not people." He looked past me toward the restaurant. "Who's not people?" I turned. The parking lot was empty. The restaurant windows were dark. The neon sign was off. The building looked abandoned. Like it had been closed for years. But I was just... "Son, you feeling all right? This place has been shut down for near about 3 years now. Food poisoning incident. Bunch of people got sick. Some died." "No, I just ate there. They served me. The taste was still in my mouth. That perfect, terrible taste. And something else, a warmth spreading through my veins, a satisfaction I'd never felt before. The old man was looking at me with concern. "You been drinking? Taking something?" Had I ever really been holding it? I don't. "Come on," he said. "I'll drive you to the hospital in Amarillo. You don't look so good." I let him lead me to his truck. As we drove away, I looked back at the restaurant. For just a second, just a split second. I swear I saw faces in the windows, all of them pressed against the glass, all of them smiling and waving, like they were saying goodbye to an old friend. The hospital found nothing wrong with me. Physical exam, blood tests, even a psych evaluation. Everything came back normal. They said I'd probably had a panic attack, highway hypnosis, dehydration, but the doctor did mention something odd. My iron levels were unusually high. "Have you been taking supplements?" she asked. "Eating a lot of red meat lately?" I told her no, but the truth was more complicated. The truth was that I felt better than I had in years. Stronger. More alert. Colors seemed brighter. Food tasted more vivid. It was like someone had turned up the saturation on reality. But I know what happened. I know what I tasted. I did some research when I got home. That Texas Roadhouse on exit 27. It did exist. Opened in 2018, closed in 2021. But not because of food poisoning, because of disappearances. 17 people over 3 years, all travelers, all alone. They'd stop for a meal and never be seen again. Their cars would be found abandoned miles away in the desert. No bodies, no explanation. The company scrubbed it from their records, probably paid a lot of money to make it disappear from the internet. But I found old newspaper articles, county records, police reports. And in every report, witnesses mentioned the same thing, a sweet smell, like meat that had been marinating too long. But here's what bothers me most, those 17 disappearances? They stopped in 221, but the hunger I've been feeling, it didn't start until after my visit. Like whatever was in that meat is still working its way through my system, still changing me. I don't eat steak anymore, can't. Every time I smell beef cooking, I'm back in that restaurant, watching them eat in perfect synchronization, feeling Madison's cold grip on my wrist. And sometimes late at night, I get hungry, not normal hungry. A specific hunger, for that perfect, terrible taste, for meat that dissolves on your tongue, for flavors that shouldn't exist. I've started driving past exit 2037 again, not stopping, just driving past. But last week, the sign was lit. The parking lot had cars, and yesterday I got a text from an unknown number. Just 4 words, "We're still serving dinner." The strangest part of me wants to go back. Part of me misses that taste, that satisfaction. That feeling of being perfectly, completely fed, maybe that's how it works. Maybe they don't need to catch everyone. Maybe they just need to give you a taste, plant that seed, and wait for you to come back on your own. Maybe I'm still being served even now. So if you're ever driving through West Texas, if you see a Texas roadhouse where there shouldn't be one, where your GPS says nothing exists, keep driving. Don't stop, don't even slow down, because they're still there, still serving, still smiling with those two white teeth. And the meat. The meat is always fresh. I know what you're thinking. You want to know what was in that freezer, what was hanging there. But see, that's the thing about real horror. Sometimes your imagination is worse than the truth. Sometimes it's better. But I'll tell you this, next time you're at a regular Texas roadhouse, a real one, and you bite into that steak and it tastes a little too perfect, maybe ask yourself why. Maybe ask yourself what fresh really means. And maybe, just maybe, check if all the other diners are chewing. Really chewing. Not just swallowing. Sweet dreams, everyone. And if this story kept you up, if it made you think twice about that late-night drive through Run, do me a favor. Share it. Let others know. Because somewhere out there, exit 2037 is waiting. The sign is glowing. The meals are hot. And they're always, always hiring. Leave a comment if you've ever seen something that shouldn't exist. A restaurant, a gas station, a motel, those places that appear and disappear, those places that feel wrong. Because I need to know. Because I need to know. I'm not the only one who's been served. UP date 3 months later, the cravings are getting stronger. I've started ordering steaks rare, then medium rare. Now I barely let them cook at all, but nothing tastes right. Nothing satisfies that specific hunger. I went back to exit 237 last night. The building was there, fully operational, full parking lot. But when I got out of my car, Trevor was standing by the front door, waiting. "We saved your table," he said. I got back in my car and drove away, but I'll be back. We both know it. The meat is calling. Estuary number 3. The laminated paper was yellowed at the edges, stapled crooked to the break room wall between a workplace safety poster and last month's schedule. Nobody talked about it. Not Marcus, who'd been there 12 years. Not Sharon, who trained every new hire. And definitely not the manager, Todd, who would suddenly need to check inventory whenever someone pointed at it. I should have known something was wrong when they offered me $28 an hour for overnight stocking for a Walmart in Millbrook, Indiana. Population 84332. But I needed the money, God. I needed the money. If you're listening to this at night, maybe working your own graveyard shift somewhere, do yourself a favor. Check your break room walls. Because what I'm about to tell you, it's not just about Walmart. These rules, they're everywhere, and once you know about them, well, let me just say this, there's a reason they pay us extra to work when the sun goes down. Story begins now. My name's Jake Brennan, 26 years old, recently divorced, and desperate enough to take any job would cover my rent. The Walmart Supercenter on Highway 49 wasn't hiring for day shift, but Todd, the night manager, practically hired me on the spot when I mentioned I was a night owl anyway. "Perfect," he'd said, shaking my hand a little too enthusiastically. "Can you start tomorrow?" Well, technically tonight, 11 p.m. That should have been my first red flag. Who's that desperate for overnight stalkers? When I showed up for my first shift, the parking lot was nearly empty, just a few cars clustered near the employee entrance, all parked under the brightest lights. The store itself looked different at night. Those massive windows at the front became mirrors, reflecting the empty parking lot back at itself. You couldn't see inside at all. Marcus met me at the employee entrance. He was maybe 50, graying beard, permanent bags under his eyes that suggested he'd been doing this way too long. "Jake, right? Right?" He didn't wait for an answer. "Come on, let's get you clocked in. Sharon will train you." The break room smelled like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, one of them flickering just enough to be annoying. That's when I saw it, the rules. Right there on the wall, eye level, impossible to miss. The paper was old, really old, the kind of yellowing that takes decades, not years. But the text was still clear, printed in basic black font, Nick Shift Guidelines. "Please follow for your safety." Sharon appeared beside me, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and calloused hands. "Don't worry about that, honey," she said, steering me away. "Just old corporate nonsense, see? Come on, let me show you how to use the scanner." But I'd already read the first few lines, and they didn't sound like corporate nonsense at all. Rule 1, between 2:17 a.m. and 2:08 a.m., all employees must remain completely still and silent. Do not move. Do not speak. Do not breathe heavily. This is for inventory purposes. Rule 2. If you hear shopping cart wheels in aisle 7 after midnight, do not investigate. Complete your tasks in other areas until the sound stops. Rule 3. The customer service desk phone may ring at 3333 a.m. Let it ring exactly 9 times. No more, no less. Do not answer it. Do not unplug it. Sharon was talking about proper lifting technique, but I wasn't listening. I was thinking about those rules, inventory purposes, at 2:15 a.m. for 1 minute. Hey, I interrupted. What's with those weird rules on the wall? Sharon's smile faltered for just a second. Oh, honey, every workplace has its quirks. You'll get used to it. Now, let me show you how to operate the baler. The first few hours were normal enough. We stocked shelves, rotated products, the usual retail drone work. The store played the same soft rock playlist on repeat, occasionally interrupted by the automated announcement that the store was closed and would reopen at 6 a.m. Marcus worked alongside me in the grocery section, teaching me the proper way to face products. Always leave a little gap at the B. Ack, he said. Makes it easier to grab if you need to. Quickly. Need to what quickly? He didn't answer. At 2:10 a.m., Sharon's voice crackled over the intercom. All right, everyone, you know what time it is. Find your positions. I watched, confused, as my coworkers began moving with practiced precision. Marcus positioned himself at the end of aisle 12, perfectly centered. Sharon stood by the dairy coolers. Even Todd emerged from his office, taking a spot near the pharmacy. Jake, Marcus hissed, get in position anywhere, just stand still. What's going? No dowa. The urgency in his voice made me comply. I stood in the middle of aisle 13, between the pasta and canned goods. The second hand on my watch ticked toward 2:17. And then, silence, not regular silence, this was different. The fluorescent lights stopped humming. The refrigeration units went quiet. Even the soft rock disappeared. It was like someone had pressed mute on the entire world. I could hear my heartbeat, feel every breath wanting to escape my lungs. My eyes darted around, but everyone else was perfectly still. Marcus looked like a statue, not even blinking. Then I heard it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from the front of the store. They weren't normal footsteps. Each one seemed to echo twice, like there was a fraction of a second delay, and the sound, it was wrong, like someone walking on broken glass but muffled, wet. The footsteps got closer. Whatever it was moving down the main aisle, past electronics, past clothing, coming toward grocery. I wanted to turn my head. Every instinct screamed at me to look. But Marcus's eyes were locked on mine, wide with warning. Don't move, they seemed to say. Whatever you do, don't move. The footsteps stopped. Right behind me, I could feel something there. A presence, cold radiated from it, like standing in front of an open freezer. But there was something else. A smell, like copper and spoiled milk. My lungs burned. I needed to breathe. But I was terrified that even the smallest movement would. What? What was I afraid would happen? Something brushed against my shoulder, not a hand. It was too soft, too light, like cobwebs, but damp. Every muscle in my body tensed. My vision started to blur from holding my breath, just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore. 2:18 a.m., the lights hummed back to life. The music returned. Everyone started moving again, like nothing had happened. Good job, rookie, Marcus said, patting my back. His hand was shaking. You did good. What? I gasped. What? I gasped. What the hell was that? Inventory, he said flatly. Come on, we've got trucks to unload. But when I turned around to look where the presence had been standing, there were wet footprints on the floor, and they weren't human. I almost quit after that first night. Would have, if my landlord hadn't called the next morning about rent being due. So I went back, night after night, learning to navigate the strange reality of the overnight shift. The rules, I discovered, were very real, and very specific. Rule number 2 about the shopping carts became relevant my second week. I was restocking cereal when I heard it. The distinctive squeak of a cartwheel echoing from aisle 7. Aisle 7 was pharmacy and health. I'd been planning to stock vitamins there next. The squeaking continued, rhythmic, like someone slowly pushing a cart back and forth. Ignore it, Sharon said, appearing beside me with a box of shampoo. Just work other aisles until it stops. But what if a customer got locked in? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Honey, no customer is pushing that cart. I tried to focus on my work, but the sound was hypnotic. Squeak, 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 pause. Squeak, 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 pause. After an hour, curiosity won. I had to know. While Sharon was in the back, I crept toward aisle 7. The squeaking got louder as I approached. At the end of the aisle, I could see the shadow of a shopping cart on the floor, moving back and forth. I peered around the corner. The cart was moving by itself. No, not by itself. There was something pushing it, but I couldn't see it properly. It was like looking at something through water, a distortion in the air, vaguely human-shaped but wrong, too tall, too thin, and where its hand should be gripping the cart handle, the temperature dropped to 20 degrees. My breath came out in visible puffs. The distortion turned toward me. I ran. Behind me, the squeaking stopped, replaced by something worse, the sound of a shopping cart accelerating, fast, getting closer. I sprinted through sporting goods, past electronics, the cart gaining on me, metal crashing into displays behind me, products flying everywhere. Jake Sharon's voice boomed over the intercom. ASLA 7, no dia without thinking. I pivoted, racing back toward aisle 7. The cart sounds followed, growing more frantic, more angry. I skidded into aisle 7 and suddenly, silence. The cart was back in its original position, slowly rolling back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, like nothing had happened. But every product that had been knocked over was mysteriously back in place. Sharon found me sitting on the floor, hyperventilating. "I told you to ignore it," she said softly. "Some things here, they just want to be left alone. As long as we don't interfere, they don't interfere, Usually. Usually? Lie? Usually?" She helped me to my feet. "Come on, let's get you some coffee. And Jake, next time follow the rules, all of them." That's when I learned about rule number 3. The phone, 3:33 a.m., came like clockwork every night. And every night, without fail, the customer service desk phone would ring. The first time I heard it, I instinctively moved to answer it. Todd physically grabbed my arm. "Count," he said. "Ring, ring, ring." We all stood there, frozen, counting silently. Ring, ring, ring. I could see the caller ID from where I stood. It was blank, not unknown or private, just blank, like the screen couldn't process whatever was calling. Ring, 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 9 rings. Then silence. "What happens if someone answers?" I asked. Todd's face went pale. "Jeremy answered it once, 3 years ago. And?" He listened for about 10 seconds. Then he started screaming, wouldn't stop. We had to call an ambulance. He never came back to work. Last I heard, he was in a psychiatric facility in Fort Wayne. Still won't say what he heard. But it was rule number 4 that really got to me. Rule 4. If you find a rolled-up sleeping bag in any aisle, do not touch it. Do not move it. Mark the aisle as under maintenance and work elsewhere. It will be gone by morning. I found my first sleeping bag during my 3rd week. Rolled up neat and tight, right in the middle of the pet food aisle. It looked new, expensive, the kind hikers would use. But there was something about it that made my skin crawl. Maybe it was the way it was positioned. Perfectly centered, or maybe it was the faint sound coming from inside it, breathing, slow, steady breathing, like someone sleeping. But the sleeping bag was clearly empty, just rolled up tight. I grabbed a maintenance sign and blocked off the aisle. When I came back an hour later to check, the sleeping bag had unrolled itself, and there was an impression inside, the perfect outline of a person, but no one was there, just the impression, and it was still warm. By my 2nd month, I'd gotten good at following the rules. The 2:17 a.m. freeze became routine. I could ignore the shopping cart in aisle 7. I counted the phone rings without thinking. I marked off sleeping bag aisles without question, but then they updated the rules. I came in one night to find everyone clustered around the break room wall. A new piece of paper had been taped below the original rules. Same old yellowed quality, like it had been waiting somewhere for decades. Rule 5. On the last Thursday of every month, one employee must volunteer to clean the old storage room beneath receiving. The door will unlock at exactly 1000 a.m. You have until 1:45 a.m. to complete the task. Do not enter after 1:45 a.m. Do not remain inside after 1:45 a.m. "Last Thursday," Marcus muttered. "That's tonight." Everyone looked at each other. Nobody volunteered. "We draw straws," Todd said finally. "Fair is fair." We did, and I lost. The storage room door was in receiving, behind towers of cardboard. Nobody ever went back there. The door itself was old, older than the rest of the building. Heavy wood with iron hinges that belonged in a different century. At 500 a.m. we heard the lock click open. "Just sweep up," Todd said, handing me a broom and dustpan. "In and out. Don't look around too much." The stairs descended further than they should have. This was supposed to be a storage room, but I counted 43 steps down. The walls changed from modern drywall to old brick, then to something older, stone. The room at the bottom was massive, impossibly massive, impossible. The ceiling disappeared into darkness, and my flashlight couldn't find the far walls, but I could see what needed cleaning. In the center of the room was a circle of black stains, old stains, each one roughly the size and shape of a person, and in the middle of the circle, a mop bucket that looked like it had been there since the 50s. The water in it was clean though, fresh, steaming even. I started mopping. The stains didn't come up easily. Each one required serious scrubbing, and even then they only faded, never fully disappeared. As I worked, I noticed something. The stains weren't random. They were positioned perfectly, each one equidistant from the others, 13 stains in total, and one empty space, right where a 14th stain should be. The empty space was exactly my size. I checked my watch, 1:32 a.m., 13 minutes left. That's when I heard them, voices, coming from the darkness beyond the circle. "Is it time? Not yet. This one's new, they're always new. Remember the last one?" He didn't clean well enough. Now he's part of the floor. My hands shook as I mopped faster. The voices got closer, but I couldn't see anything beyond the circle of stains. He's scared. They're always scared. Makes them taste better. Stop. A different voice, commanding, not this one, not yet. He follows the rules. 1:42 a.m. I dropped the mop and ran. I dropped the mop. Behind me, something roared in frustration. Many somethings. The stairs seemed longer going up, like they were stretching. I burst through the door at 1:44 and 47 seconds. The door slammed shut behind me. The lock clicked, and from below, muffled by distance and stone, came the sound of screaming. But not human screaming. It was the sound of things that wanted to scream but didn't have the right parts for it. Todd was waiting for me. You did good, he said. Real good, he said. Real good. The last 3 didn't make it out. The stains. Yeah, he said quietly. 13 employees who didn't follow the rules. Over the years, different rules, but same result. Why don't you quit? Why doesn't everyone quit? Todd laughed bitterly. You think we haven't tried? Go ahead. Put in your 2 weeks. See what happens. I did. The next night, I submitted my resignation. Todd just smiled sadly and filed it away. 2 weeks later, on my supposed last night, I walked to my car after my shift, got in, drove home, went to bed, and woke up in the break room. It was 10:05 to 7 p.m., 3 minutes before my shift. Everyone was looking at me with sympathy. How? I started. We've all tried, Sharon said. Some of us have been trying for years. You work the night shift until you don't. What does that mean? What does that mean? Marcus pointed at the rules. It means you follow them, every single one, because the moment you don't, he didn't need to finish. I've been here 6 months now, 6 months of following the rules, 6 months of impossible things, 6 months of trying to understand what this place really is. The other employees have been here longer, much longer. Sharon started in 1987. She looks exactly the same in the old employee photos. Marcus claims he's been here since 1975, but the store only opened in 1983, and Todd won't say when he started. But I found his original employment paperwork while filing some forms. It's dated 1962, 21 years before this Walmart existed. The rules keep coming. New ones appear whenever someone figures out how to survive the old ones. Rule number 6 showed up last month. Rule 6. If you see yourself shopping in the store during your shift, do not approach. Do not make eye contact. Complete your tasks normally. Your other self will leave before dawn. I've seen myself 3 times now, shopping, filling a cart with things I'd never buy, speaking to no one, moving with purpose towards some unknown goal. The first time, I tried to follow myself. I watched me check out at a register that wasn't open, paying a cashier who wasn't there, and walk out through doors that stayed closed. The second time, I noticed my other self was wearing clothes I'd thrown away years ago. The third time, my other self looked older, grayer, sadder. He was buying flowers, a sympathy card, and a black suit. He saw me watching and shook his head slowly, then mouthed a single word. Soon. Rule 7 appeared yesterday. Rule 7. Every employee must take inventory in section X7 at least once. You will know when it's your turn. Follow the green lights. Count everything twice. Do not question the numbers. My turn came last night. The green lights led me deeper into the store than I'd ever been. Through doors I'd never noticed, down corridors that shouldn't exist. Section X7 was a warehouse, but not for normal products. The shelves were filled with impossible things. Objects that hurt to look at. Boxes that were bigger on the inside. Products with labels in languages that don't exist. And on one shelf, perfectly organized, were jars. Hundreds of jars, each one filled with a shifting, swirling darkness. The inventory list in my hand said simply, "Count the souls." I counted 86 jars, each one labeled with a name and date. Jeremy, 2071 Melissa, 2019 Franklin, 2018 Diana, 2017. The dates went back decades. Centuries even. Names I recognized from history books. And at the end of the shelf, empty jars, waiting. One of them already had a label. Jake Brennan, 2025. Tomorrow is my last Thursday of the month. My turn to clean the storage room again. But there's a new addition to Rule 5. Scrawled in handwriting I recognize as Todd's addendum. Those who complete 13 monthly cleanings successfully will be promoted to management. Failure during the 13th cleaning results in immediate termination. Tomorrow is my 13th cleaning. Sharon pulled me aside tonight, told me the truth. The managers aren't managers. They're wardens, keeping something contained, something that feeds on the overnight workers, something that's been here long before Walmart, long before the town, long before anything. The rules keep it controlled, she said. Keep it fed just enough. Without them, she showed me a newspaper clipping from 1958. Before Walmart, local grocery store massacre, once a teen deed in unexplained incident. It was here, she whispered. Just hungrier. Walmart didn't create it. They just industrialized it, made it efficient, controlled. The thing is, I could leave. During the day, I could pack up and run, never come back. But I've seen what happens to those who break their contract. Their names appear on milk cartons, in missing person reports, and eventually their empty cars are found on highway shoulders, always within 50 miles of a Walmart. So I keep working, keep following the rules, keep counting down to tomorrow night, my 13th cleaning. But here's the thing about rules. They're only as strong as the people who follow them. And I found something today hidden in the manager's office. The original rules, the real ones, from before Walmart, before the incorporation, before the sanitization. They're written in languages I don't recognize. But somehow I can read them. And they tell a different story. The thing below isn't trapped, it's waiting. Every rule we follow, every ritual we complete, it's not keeping it weak, it's making it stronger. The 2-5 and 10 a.m. freeze? We're not hiding from it, we're feeding it. Our fear, our stillness, our obedience, it's all food, the shopping cart, the phone, the sleeping bags. They're not random hauntings, they're tests. Seeing how much we'll tolerate, how much we'll accept, how much reality can bend before we break. And the storage room isn't a storage room, it's a mouth. And tomorrow, during my 13th cleaning, it's going to swallow me whole, unless I break the rules, all of them, at once. Marcus tried to warn me tonight, pulled me aside and whispered, "Don't be a hero. Heroes end up as stains, but I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm trying to be something else, a survivor. Tonight, I'm writing this during my break, my last break, because tomorrow at Malian M, everything changes. I spent the day researching. The Millbrook Public Library has archives going back to the 1800s, and the thing Sharon showed me, that newspaper clipping from 1958, it's just the tip of the iceberg. The deaths go back further, much further. 1934, mysterious fire at Henderson's General Store, 7 dead. 1912, tragedy at Miller's Grocery, entire family vanished. 89, strange incident at Trading Post, 9 bodies found desiccated, always the same location. The exact spot where our Walmart now stands, always overnight workers, always unexplained. But I found something else, something that gives me hope. A journal entry from 1923, written by a man named Thomas Wright, who worked at the small market that used to occupy this cursed ground. He'd figured it out too, the feeding patterns, the rules, the ancient hunger, and he'd tried to stop it. His journal described the same basement I've been cleaning, the same circle of stains, the same voices in the darkness. But his entry ended differently. I have discovered the weakness. It feeds on compliance, on ritual, on our willing participation in its game. But break the ritual entirely, disrupt its feeding cycle, and it becomes vulnerable. The fire must consume everything. The circle must be broken. The pattern must end. The next newspaper clipping was dated 3 days later. Market burns to ground, owner missing. But here's the crucial detail. There were no deaths that year, or the year after, or for nearly a decade. Thomas Wright's sacrifice bought time, until greed brought another business to this spot, and the cycle began again. I know what I have to do. The gasoline is hidden in my car, 3 5-gallon containers. Enough to turn that basement into an inferno. But it's not just about fire, it's about timing. According to the original rules I found, the thing below is strongest during the feeding rituals. But there's a window. A moment of vulnerability when it's focused on consuming whatever soul it's been offered. That's my chance. 1000 a.m. tomorrow. When I go down those stairs for the 13th time, I won't be bringing a mop. I'll be bringing salvation. Todd cornered me tonight as I was leaving. He looked worried, more worried than I'd ever seen him. Jake, he said quietly, I need you to know something about tomorrow night. The 13th cleaning isn't just about promotion. It's about replacement. What do you mean? The thing below, it doesn't just feed on us, it becomes us. The person who goes down for the 13th cleaning, they don't come back up. Not really. Something else comes up wearing their face. He pulled out an old Polaroid photo. It showed him from maybe 20 years ago, younger, happier, human. I was employee number 14, he whispered. The real Todd died in 1987. I'm just, what's left? What it made from his memories and flesh. A puppet to ensure the feeding continues. I stared at him, seeing him clearly for the first time, the way he never quite blinked at the right moments, the way his shadow seemed disconnected from his movements, the way his breath never fogged in the cold. Sharon knows, he continued. Marcus knows. We all know about each other. The thing below creates us as managers, as wardens, to keep the cycle going, to ensure fresh food. How long? I asked. How long what? How long have you been fighting it, the real you, still in there? For just a moment, his face cracked. Something human flickered behind his eyes. Every day, he whispered, every single day for 38 years, watching it happen over and over, unable to stop it. Unable to warn anyone until it's too late. He handed me something, a small piece of paper with an address. That's where Thomas Wright lived, he said. His grandson still lives there. If you succeed tomorrow night, find him, tell him his grandfather's sacrifice meant something. Then the human flicker died, and Todd the puppet returned. See you tomorrow, Jake, he said with artificial cheerfulness. Big day ahead, but I saw him slip something else into my locker when he thought I wasn't looking. A key, brass, old, with a note. Emergency exit, sub-basement level, use only if the fire fails. Even as a puppet, some part of the real Todd is still fighting. Still trying to help, still hoping someone can end this tomorrow night. I'll find out if that someone is me, or if I'll become another manager, another warden, another puppet dancing to the tune of something that should have died long ago. But I won't go down easy. And I won't go down alone, because I've learned one more thing from Thomas Wright's journal, something that gives me hope. The thing below might be ancient, it might be hungry, it might be powerful. But it's not the only supernatural force in this world. And some forces fight back. Tomorrow night at 1000 a.m., when that door unlocks and I descend those impossible stairs, I'm going to find out which force is stronger, the hunger that devours or the fire that purifies. Either way, the night shift rules are about to change. Forever, tomorrow night, I'm not bringing gasoline, I'm bringing a reckoning, and somewhere in the darkness below, I think that ancient thing is finally starting to feel what we felt for so long, fear. If you're still listening. If you made it this far, do me a favor, check your local Walmart, check the break room walls, look for the yellowed paper, the rules that don't make sense, and if you find them, if you see those impossible instructions that everyone ignores but everyone follows, remember this story. Remember that somewhere in Indiana, in a Walmart that looks just like yours, someone decided to stop following the rules. And if I succeeded, if I actually managed to burn that thing out, your rules might have changed. They might be different now, stranger, more desperate. Because the thing about ancient hungers, they don't die, they just move from store to store, town to town, looking for new places to feed, new rules to enforce, new employees to consume. So check your break room, and if you see a new rule, something about not going into the frozen section after 3 a.m., or counting the floor tiles in aisle 13, or never saying your name backwards in the bathroom mirror, just remember you have a choice. You can follow the rules, or you see and bring gasoline. But whatever you do, don't ignore them. Because ignoring them is just another kind of following. And that thing in the dark? The one that smells like copper and spoiled milk? It's hungry, it's always hungry. And somewhere, right now, in a Walmart just like yours, someone just clocked in for the night shift. God help them. Because the rules certainly won't. Sweet dreams. Sweet dreams.